The American Revolution Unveiled, a savage struggle in a global power play. When Americans envision world wars, their imaginations drift to the grim spectacles of the 20th century, the gore-drenched trenches of the Somme in 1916, where the screams of the wounded mingled with the mud and blood of a million casualties, the ceaseless roar of German bombers tearing through London's skies in the autumn of 1940, a nightly dance of death under a blackened heaven, or the apocalyptic mushroom cloud that swallowed Hiroshima in 1945, a silent harbinger of a new, terrifying age. But what if the true First World War wasn't fought in the shadow of machine guns or atomic fire? What if it unfolded centuries earlier, cloaked in the powdered wigs and musket smoke of the 18th century? A groundbreaking exhibition at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C., rips away the nostalgic veneer of the American Revolution, revealing it not as a plucky colonial rebellion, but as a savage, sprawling theater in a global contest for supremacy. Titled The American Revolution, a World War, this immersive showcase shatters the sanitized myth of a simple showdown between ragtag patriots and Britain's red-coated legions. Instead, it paints a vivid, sprawling tapestry of a conflict that ensnared empires and continents: Britain, France, Spain, the Dutch Republic, and distant lands from the sun-scorched shores of Jamaica to the fortress of Gibraltar and the spice-laden battlegrounds of India. If this war hadn't ballooned into a worldwide struggle, with foreign powers throwing their weight behind the colonies, we might be singing "God Save the King" today, says David K. Allison, the exhibition's curator, project director, and co-author of a forthcoming book that promises to rewrite the history books. The moment it became a global chessboard, with allies and enemies clashing from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean, Britain had to rethink its game plan, eventually ditching North America to protect its crown jewels elsewhere, like India. The shadow of the 7 Years' War. To understand this seismic shift, we must rewind to the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, a brutal clash known in America as the French and Indian War. This wasn't just a colonial scuffle, it was a globe-spanning slugfest that redrew the map of power. Britain emerged victorious, its coffers swollen, and its navy unrivaled, while France and Spain limped away, licking wounds from lost territories and shattered prestige. By 1775, when the first shots rang out at Lexington and Concord, these humiliated powers saw a chance for revenge. Britain, now the world's preeminent empire, its Union Jack fluttering over a navy that could choke any coastline, became the target of a calculated counterstrike. The American Revolution was their Trojan horse. Allison explains with a knowing smirk. To France and Spain, we were just pawns in a bigger game to kneecap the British lion. France, ruled by the iron hand of Louis XVI, and Spain, under the ambitious Charles III, had no love for the democratic ideals bubbling in Boston's taverns. Yet they funneled muskets, cannons, gold, and soldiers across the Atlantic to the rebels' cause. The Dutch Republic, a mercantile powerhouse with an eye for profit, slipped into the fray, smuggling supplies to the colonies under the noses of British patrols. This wasn't charity, it was strategy. For years, Britain fought tooth and nail to crush the uprising, but as the war dragged on and the costs mounted, London's warlords faced a bitter truth. Holding on to 13 unruly colonies wasn't worth the price, when richer spoils, like India's endless trade routes, beckoned elsewhere. A war of greed, not glory. Forget the starry-eyed tales of liberty and justice taught in schoolbooks. In the grand scheme, the American Revolution was a ruthless brawl over trade routes, economic clout, and imperial bragging rights. France didn't care about Thomas Jefferson's quill scratching out declarations. Spain wasn't losing sleep over Patrick Henry's fiery speeches. The Dutch, they just wanted open markets. For these monarchies and merchants, backing the American rebels was a golden ticket to hobble Britain's global dominance. If the colonies broke free, Britain's economic engine would sputter, leaving North America ripe for the picking by its rivals. This wasn't about freedom, Allison says bluntly. It was about power and profit, plain and simple. The exhibition's heartbeat lies in two breathtaking French paintings, freshly restored and dripping with historical intrigue: The Siege of Yorktown and The Surrender of Yorktown, both masterpieces by Louis Nicolas van Blarenberg. These works stand in stark opposition to America's cherished vision of Yorktown, immortalized in John Trumbull's 1820 painting. The Surrender of Lord Cornwallis, which crowns the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, with George Washington and Benjamin Lincoln basking in glory. Van Blaarenberghe flips the script. Americans are mere specks on the edges, while French troops and ships strut as the true conquerors. It's a provocative jab at the national ego, and a glimpse into a reality long buried under layers of red, white, and blue pride. Yorktown, the French tipping point. Let's set the scene. October 1781, Virginia's muddy shores. General Cornwallis, cornered and desperate, pins his hopes on a British fleet to snatch his army from the jaws of defeat. Enter Admiral de Grasse and his French armada, slicing through the Chesapeake Bay like a steel wall. With ruthless precision, they smash Britain's naval lifeline, trapping Cornwallis and his men like rats in a cage. On land, French cannons, manned by the seasoned hands of General Rochambeau's troops, rain hellfire alongside American militia. Without this French muscle, the rebels' dreams of victory might have dissolved into a footnote of failure. Yorktown wasn't just an American win, Allison insists. It was a French masterstroke, and Spain and the Dutch kept the fire burning. But the war's scope stretched far beyond Virginia's bloodied fields. Across the ocean, France and Spain schemed to storm Britain's homeland and wrest Gibraltar from its grasp. Audacious plans that crumbled under British resilience. Reeling from these setbacks, Britain turned its gaze eastward, doubling down on India to salvage its empire. The revolution's final act didn't play out in 1781. It unfolded 2 years later, in 1783 at Cuddalore, India, where British and French forces clashed in a brutal, dust-choked brawl over colonial dominance. This wasn't just America's war, it was the world's. Treaties and triumphs. By 1783, the guns fell silent, and the Treaty of Paris reshaped the globe. Britain, still the king of the seas, grudgingly granted independence to its former colonies. France clawed back some dignity lost. In the 7 Years' War, Spain locked down its American holdings, and the Dutch Republic staggered away, its trade dreams bruised. The Smithsonian exhibition resurrects this saga with jaw-dropping artifacts. A gleaming French cannon that roared at Yorktown, a scale model of de Grasse's flagship Ville de Paris, and a haunting portrait of Washington by Charles Wilson Peale, once a fixture in Rochambeau's home, a testament to the fragile alliance that birthed a nation. Lafayette, hero or hype? Then there's the Marquis de Lafayette, America's favorite Frenchman. History paints him as a revolutionary rock star, but the exhibition peels back the legend. His role, overblown. Lafayette's fame skyrocketed after his 1824 North American tour, a victory lap that cemented his mythos. The real MVP was Rochambeau, the grizzled commander who steered France's forces to glory. Yet Lafayette's charm endures, commemorative plates, a garish dicky, and even World War I relics from the Lafayette Brigade. When American pilots repaid his legacy by fighting for France, all nod to his outsized shadow. Rewriting the Revolution. John Adams saw it clearly in 1784. The American Revolution was nearly the history of mankind, a sprawling epic tying together Britain, France, Spain, Holland, and beyond. But 19th century storytellers shrank it into a tidy tale of pluck and patriotism, paving the way for American exceptionalism. This exhibition smashes that illusion. We've been blind to our own history, Allison warns. We didn't win this alone. We were forged in a crucible of empires, native struggles, and a world war decided as much in India as in Independence Hall. Without those allies, we'd have been crushed. The American Revolution, a world war, curated by David K. Allison, runs from June 26 to July 9, 2019, at the National Museum of American History. It's not just a history lesson, it's a reckoning with a past soaked in blood, ambition, and global stakes, demanding we rethink the birth of America.